Hey everybody, how's it going? So I just wanted to have this little short intro edit before the actual review just to tell you guys that so I did this recording with my friend Chris and Eliza, and I wanted to apologize a little bit ahead of time for the potential audio quality that you're going to hear. We were using a single microphone for this, and so that's why you might hear like an echoey sound around. I didn't actually manage to get our hands on like 3 Yeti microphones. You know, these things are expensive, and so this one was good enough to just get the job done for the time being. And we really wanted to get our thoughts out there after this episode was done, so that's the format in which we're doing it. It's basically a podcast, so take the time to sit back, relax, and enjoy listening to this while you do whatever it is that you'd usually do with your day, because there's not going to be any, scenery or footage behind it. This is basically a podcast, and it's an experiment. We're trying something new. So, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you around. Bye, guys. Hello there, ladies and gents, and welcome to DigiTrip. We just came back from watching the most grandiose finale of pretty much every show on Earth, and that is Game of Thrones Season 7's season finale. And oh my god, with me is the lovely Eliza. Say hello.
Hi.
And Chris.
Hello.
And so what we wanted to do here is, this is our immediate afterthoughts about this series. This is something that actually we wanted to do for a while. We've done it with movies, but then for one reason or another, primarily my fault, they don't get uploaded. So this is the first time we're actually in a room without any kind of disturbances and distractions. And so we're going to talk about what we thought about the season, or rather the season finale, and then maybe we'll go into also discussing the overall season, our thoughts on it a little bit later. But starting off, let's get down with initial impressions of this phenomenal season finale. Let's start with you, Eliza. What did you think?
So I already mentioned before we came down here to do this that it was literally all the good things that you can expect in an episode of Game of Thrones, but better. Yeah. And then it wrapped up with the worst possible outcome you could imagine. Yeah. And it was a season finale, so it's basically it's pretty much great, the world is over, and we don't know what's going to happen for the next half a year?
Yeah,
more?
right.
How long does Game of Thrones?
A year? 2018.
We're just going to wait a year.
Yeah, we have to wait till 2018.
In the meantime, I'll probably be upstairs trying to drown myself in pillows.
Alright, I'm going to be counting down the days.
I'm content with the way this ended.
How
to
could
where
you
I
be
can
content?
wait. I can wait.
I feel like
so it wasn't like other
is a lie.
seasons where it ends with the thing alright, I need to know what happens next. Why don't you give me the next 30 seconds of film so I can see if Jon Snow lives or dies? Where this is alright, so this is happening, and it's going to happen probably within the first episode.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
season.
I can agree that the outcome is inevitable, but it's more or less I don't really want to wait to find out.
Right, but my thing is, this episode kind of goes back on every trope that Game of Thrones has taught us to this point. We get scenarios where you were like, okay, so he's totally going to die right now, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So, I think it's conditioned us at this point to expect the worst, and in this case, this entire season has been filled with the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah, you're right.
It's basically been giant wish fulfillment.
Which I think we kind of deserve, because I feel like the show realistically started out with horror and heartbreak and awful things, and now we're finally getting a little bit of peace, but at the same time, questionable situations have occurred also, and I don't really know how to feel about them.
Right.
Well, where do you want to start? Where do you want to start with this?
Oh, gosh. Well, I guess we should, I suppose, is there any other initial thoughts that you want to get off of your chest?
I would say, with the whole impression that they've brought,
it's
to the point that we've had such a good season and so many great outcomes, that what does next season hold as far as, all right, well, you've lifted all the spirits of everyone that's watched this show. We've had one significant death happen, so it's interesting to see how this will all play out. So
yeah. All right, so I suppose a great starting point would be the beginning of the episode, right?
I don't even remember the beginning.
How did it start?
I'm confused.
I will say, all right, so
the first of the season.
Right, I remember vividly this episode. So the first thought I had when it opened up, I was like, all right, so we're jumping immediately to, they're on their way to King's Landing. We see Daenerys' army assembled outside of the city walls. We get to see the Unsullied, and we get to see the Dothraki. So we get to see pretty much, as Cersei states it later in the episode, she showed her military might. She showed her hand. Mm-hmm. And we kind of have been getting time jumps all throughout the season, kind of cutting down all that, in between stuff. Mm-hmm. And then we get to the big, all right, we get to see characters join on screen we haven't seen on screen at seasons. We see Podrick and Tyrion together again. We've got the reunion of the Hound and the Mountain.
Yeah, Brienne and Jaime too, because that's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of a nice little... It was a nice little experience to see a lot of characters that we have seen in previous seasons interact, and we kind of have missed those interactions over this course of time, and now they're all finally together again, and things are so drastically different. Like, Clegane goes and approaches his technically dead brother and, threatens him with something. I don't even know who's coming for him. I don't know, but apparently they know.
He said, finally, you're uglier than I am.
Yeah, I like that line.
Classic Clegane.
Right?
So he's not scared of nothing except for dead guys. So actually, he's not scared of just fire.
Just fire.
He's not even scared of dead guys. So I mean,
unless
they're on fire.
Speaking of the dead guy, how long were they going to make us wait for that freaking white to come out?
I was so scared. All right, so after that whole greeting thing,
conditioned for the worst.
Yeah. I was expecting that idiot guard to have gone in and been like, "Oh, I'm gonna find out what's in this box," and unleash it, and then they were gonna open it up. Or I was actually afraid that they were gonna go out there and be like, "Why hasn't he brought the dead thing in yet?" For them to go, "Oh, look out," and find that the thing is gone and the guard is dead. So
and now more dead things start popping up throughout King's Landing.
That actually was my initial thought. I thought that this was going to be a straight survival zombie apocalypse episode where it was going to be like, "Where's the white?" And then suddenly just hear the growls of hundreds of citizens pouring into the arena because they've all been devoured. I could have sworn that's where this was gonna go.
Yeah. So that was a nice little improvement, and then of course that whole situation turned out really well because Jon is his father's son, or not.
Well, hold on. Before we go there, let's talk about Daenerys and essentially being fashionably late.
Yeah.
She didn't arrive with Jon. She didn't arrive with Tyrion. She didn't arrive with, any of her people. And everyone's assembled, Cersei's there, all her people are there. We've seen, a few of these interactions. And then here she comes with, 2 dragons mounted on the dragon back as one would come to expect of the Dragon Queen.
Yeah.
And, essentially fashionably late, but also kind of exerting her dominance, if you
I find that extremely hilarious that Cersei is sitting there and she's like, "Here I am, Queen of the Seven Kingdoms and the, whatever the hell else land there is."
Yeah.
I've watched all 7 seasons and I still don't fucking know. But anyway, she's sitting there, "We've been here this entire time waiting for you," and all that Daenerys can say is, "I'm sorry." And it's basically like a big fuck you. I don't really care because I'm queen and I'll show up when I want. And Cersei's like, can't say anything because what do you say to a woman who just rode in on a dragon?
Right, and you can see the amount of contempt
between
in her
the two.
face.
Yeah, she was done.
Yeah,
she was super done.
Cersei's face throughout that entire thing, you can tell.
She looked like somebody wiped poop underneath her nose and she was just sniffing it the entire time.
She's just disgusted by everything, right?
And then now, when you catch back up to the whole expression on her face when Clegane kicked over that box 300 style.
Mm-hmm. And then it was that she was scared and smelling the poop at the same time.
Yeah. Literally went straight for her. I don't know if that was symbolic of something, why,
I hope. That would be awesome.
I think
kind of like a foreshadowing thing because that had to put a real that was her reality check. You're not the only one in the world. The world doesn't revolve around you. It doesn't care about your incest kids and who you love.
It doesn't care about your throne.
Death is coming for you regardless of what your last name is or how much money you have.
Yep.
And I really enjoyed the fact that it turned around and was like, I'm gonna go straight for this bitch.
Yep.
And then Jaime's expression as he just looks on and is just like, what am I seeing right now?
Yeah,
you could see the terrified look. You could see the military man in him. How do we beat something like that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you see Clegane pull back the chains and cut it in half, and then they get to see that still hasn't stopped.
It's really Living Dead is what that is.
Yeah,
and that I think they needed that too because I was afraid that they were just gonna let it be, and they were gonna kind of
like just kind of let it like a
discredit
walker
it and be like, oh, this isn't, it's not really dead. You guys are doing something. It's a trick of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So them kind of picking it to bits was really important. And John, lighting it on fire and then killing it with the dragon glass, like they did everything that they needed to do in a very short amount of time, and they kind of nailed making it. This is a fact.
It was the Westeros sales pitch.
Right, basically.
We bring the White Walker, we cut it up a little bit, we show the different ways we can harm it, and then we're like, so, you gonna help us?
Yeah, you in or you out. Did you get like a little bit of like a Walking Dead vibe when everyone was just like, fuck this, I'm out, I'm gonna take my ship, I'm gonna go someplace, and
just him.
So I'm gonna take my ball and go home.
Yeah, like it felt like a lot of people were like, survival of the fittest now, peace, bitch.
Yeah, they're like, if it's truly coming to an end, then
I'm not gonna be.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go.
I'm gonna go on my own
island,
terms.
the dead can't swim. We'll be fine. That kind of thing.
Yeah, Yeah. Oh man. So yeah, that scene was filled with tension. And speaking of tension, moving on to like the next important bit was after John was like, I'm not gonna swear allegiance to both, and I loved that like his honor got him scolded by literally everybody there.
But he is like he is his father's son, so to speak.
Yeah.
And he has always been that way. So I kind of sitting there, I knew that he wasn't going to say, yeah, I'm gonna do that. Because his better judgment is, and he's right, what he said was exactly true. If everyone starts lying, all that keeps happening is no one's word means anything, and ultimately you end up with better and better lies until you don't even know what the truth is. So he's basically trying to be the best man that he knows he can be, and he's like, if everyone else decides to fall to lies, I will at least, and everyone will know, even the liars, I'm being honest. I will always only follow my word, and I will only make oaths that I can keep. So it's honorable of him. Granted, Ned was also an honorable person, and he died, but the person who killed him was kind of a little shit, and there were a lot of things.
And let's say his honor got him killed, but at the same time, it was plotted against him. Like, there was no way that he was coming out on top. Like, any chance he had was pretty much pulled
there
out
was a
from
lot
under
of
him.
things too that ended up revealing a lot of unnecessary things that happened in the past that obviously can't be taken back. But
well, when we talk about Jon Snow coming forward and saying that in a public forum to the actual queen of Westeros, his sworn queen, everyone that looks up to him and sees him as king of the North, and you could see the expression on her face was like shock and like she couldn't believe that he literally just announced that he chose her, and that he was willing to give up the one stipulation the queen set forward to help them for her. Like, that was huge for her. Like, she has been building to this moment his character, the person that he is, the sacrifices he's willing to make, and she sees herself in him and his willingness to do what he feels is right and not doing what should be done. And
that actually might have been the smartest decision that he could have done, because ultimately Cersei clearly had no intention of actually being on anyone's side anyway.
Regardless, because she's Cersei, and I knew it was too good to be true the moment that she walked out and said, hey, I'm going to do this, no strings attached. I hope you all remember that I said that I'm going to do this with no strings attached. And I'm sitting there listening to her, and I'm like, there's literally strings attached to everything with you.
Right.
Literally everything. So don't come out here lying to me like I don't know who you are.
And I actually, was thinking, I thought to myself, when she came back out after the discussion with Tyrion, which, oh my god, by the way, that was intense. I thought that Tyrion was going to die there. There was so much.
I didn't have the feeling of his death, but I feel that was a very strong scene for both of them. For me, it's the first time I've felt connection on an emotional level with Cersei since, she kind of lost all emotion after what happened to her in the Sept.
Yeah.
So, for me, it kind of brought me back to her character and actually started having me care for her character again. Yeah. You see her holding her stomach, you see Tyrion apologizing for essentially the chaos that he brought her and his family, and saying I killed my father because it was him or I. He wanted me dead for something I clearly didn't do, and now Cersei's aware. That you really didn't do that.
Yeah, that was a pretty honest, intense scene. But
And even so much for him, the fact that he was willing to die. Like, he looked at the mountain and said, go ahead, get on with it.
Yeah, but at the same time, with Tyrion, you have to remember, like, he's got a lot of guilt on his chest, and then there are a lot of things that he regrets and he blames himself for that aren't necessarily his fault. And a lot of times with a character like Tyrion, who has a very, like, dark and not gritty, depressing past in a sense, that's their only way out. And he's trying to do things to make the world better, and he's trying to make up for those things and, you know, try to see the kind of growth that he can get out of the good people he finds. But at the same time, that's never really going to erase how he feels. And so him saying, go ahead, kill me, is almost like a, go ahead, let me find my way out of this world, finally. Release me from the chains that I have upon myself, and let me be free.
It's true, because he has endured a lot.
A lot.
He has endured so much, this poor little
Like,
man.
from the start of the show, he had a woman that he thought he loved, completely trusted, and she turned out to be a complete lie. He killed his father. His sisters always hated him. The only person that's ever been good to him is Jaime, and then all of a sudden, he can't even be on his brother's side because they have conflicting, you know, ideals.
Yeah.
And then every person that he has trusted and he has liked is almost, like, disappeared, and he's in a situation now that's finally good, but that past is never, it's not gone yet.
Yeah, he
It's
can't
not
get
done.
away from it. He probably honestly feels so alone
Yeah.
in the world.
You can see it every time, and this is part of, I'm sorry, but Dinkelberg does a great job when it comes to, you know,
Dinkelberg.
acting, so
Dinkelberg.
I love him. I love him. I think he does a great job, but
So,
I know that's not his actual name,
Yeah,
but he's Dinkelberg or Dinkelbot.
Dinkelbot. Dinkelbot. I always love Dinkelbot.
But yeah, I mean, he does a great job portraying that character who we may forget in a moment that he is lonely, but he always is. And another key point to that is the end of that episode. Like, he stood there and he was the only one, and he knew what was happening, and he doesn't, like, we don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing or what's going to happen, but there was Tyrion standing alone with no one by his side, and he probably won't ever have anyone.
Yeah.
And it sucks,
Yeah, it really does.
but that's the life that he's stuck in right now.
Yeah.
And he's
all right,
just
so
there.
let's talk about the in-between. So we've got the big thing with Theon, you know, with his approaching of Jon Snow and having that huge moment where, you know, he got forgiven by Sansa back, you know, a few seasons back. And here he is having a conversation with essentially the most important Stark member. And, you know, he said, if it wasn't for what you did for my sister, I'd have killed you on the spot earlier this season. And, you know, him saying, you can be both.
A Stark and a Greyjoy.
Yep, it was huge.
That final scene where he got his ass beat, though, I'm not gonna lie, it didn't really do anything for me.
No, because here's my thing is, like, and the thing that I was questioning that entire time, Theon, for me, like, I understand he's a very conflicted character, and he's gone through a lot of stuff too, and then obviously with the whole Bolton situation, like, he's traumatized, which is understandable. But was he not trained by the Starks from birth in combat?
Yeah, he was.
So I don't understand how all of a sudden you become basically like this helpless, like, I don't know how to swing my fists, I don't know how to swing a sword, like, I don't get that. That's basically muscle memory.
Well, remember, he was tortured, had, you know, his fingers cut open, nails pried up, like, his motor function in one of his hands is like...
I get
pretty
that.
much shot.
But then you also have Jaime, who had his entire hand cut off, who fights with his left hand now. Like, that's something that...
He's still not all that good in his defense.
But he can still fight and defend himself, and I feel like that particular situation, like, I get it, your motor functions are probably damaged because the Boltons are batshit crazy, but at the same time, like, I still feel like you should be able to swing your fist and control your body otherwise to better have suited that fight scene. I think mentally he's just become a weak...
Yeah,
Well, the symbolism there was to show the Iron Blood. Iron Bloods never give up.
Yeah.
So it was the fact that he wasn't going to win that.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to win it because he's gone through all this, but he went in there, did it anyway, showed his loyalty to his sister, showed the strength that Jon's words had filled him with, and now he's willing to go out there and face those things.
For Yara.
He had a sense
And
of
that's,
purpose.
That's fine, I get it. I feel like that whole Theon scene was kind of like
Okay.
meh.
Yeah.
It was like, all right, cool.
All right, well
and
then,
moving on.
then
You know
let's
what I mean?
let's flash to the scene in Winterfell where Littlefinger and Sansa are.
But yeah, so actually talking about that scene with Littlefinger, though, oh my god, yeah, if we're starting this off, that was basically wish fulfillment, I would say, on like the grandest scale. Like we finally got it.
Well, let's
Well,
not.
I guess you were talking about the scene prior to that, where
Yeah, I'm
Sansa
talking
was
about where they were
to him?
talking
Yeah, was talking.
to each
Yeah,
other,
and
and they
that's-
were kind of. He was painting this picture in her head that, Arya's there to take over as
Oh, okay, the conspiring.
yeah, the
I found it
conspiring,
kind of
yeah.
funny that he started that whole situation with, when situations like this occur, I like to play a little game. When Arya literally said the same exact thing to her sister in the episode prior to that. She literally said the same words. We like to play a little game. And in that game, this is what we do. And then she explained, the whole situation behind it. And she was like, the person who played this last wasn't very good at it. And here he is, who he decides to play another game that he's not very good at. And he thought he was, but turns out it's the complete opposite. And he's trying to, like Chris was saying, go and pit these two sisters against each other because he wants Sansa essentially to end her sister, and he doesn't want that threat in the way.
Well,
and that's
ultimately,
true.
that conversation started with her denouncing Jon as the king of the North.
Yeah.
Because that's what he was referring to. He was like, your brother has sworn fealty to Daenerys, and in turn betraying the North. He bent the knee. Was he doing it for us, or why was he doing it? And then he goes on saying how beautiful she is, and it's likely because she's a woman. He's a man that's not wed. She's a woman that's not wed. And it's pretty much like, here's your chance to become the Warden of the North, to become the leader of the North, and in turn position himself even higher yet again, as has been his motive throughout the entire series.
And how, I didn't actually catch. I completely forgot about that whole game that, Arya talked about in the last
that's
episode.
why I said when he started talking, I was like, I am almost positive he's already dead, and that's Arya. I thought it was Arya.
Yeah.
And I thought she was just fucking with her sister.
Again.
and it turned out not to be the case, but it was even sweeter of a victory for me to have them call Arya into this room and have them seal it off with guards, and for Sansa to sit there and say, you have these, basically, you need to plead guilty to these things that we're accusing you
treason,
of.
Yeah, and murder. And I love that you're
And
comment.
how do you answer? And she turns around and she goes, Littlefinger. And I was like,
Right? That was the best part. And I love that, even before, we all were like, this doesn't add up. When I
and that's why
overheard
I
you
sat
say.
there and I was
yeah.
like, who did she murder?
Yeah, right?
I was sitting there and I'm like, who did she murder that matters to you, Sansa? None of this makes sense.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, she didn't technically kick the season off of murdering the entire house.
Yeah, but, who cares about that?
Who cares about that? Well, first of all, if I'm Sansa and I find out that my little sister single-handedly not only murdered the entire house of Frey, okay, but did it with the mask of Walder Frey on her face and fed his children to all of them in a minced pie, okay, I would sit there and be
to
like,
him.
wow,
Yeah.
regardless, whoever ate it, doesn't matter. He ate people.
Yeah.
Somebody did some cannibalism and then they all died. If I was Sansa, I'd be like, the only murder you committed did us justice because technically they were trying to kill all of us. So
Yeah.
you protected my family, you protected yourself. Great, awesome, cool. But here she sat and she's like, you committed murder, and my brain was like, do we know, everybody knows the meme where the girl's sitting there and she looks super confused and there's all these
All the
crazy
math?
math
Yeah.
going on. That was me. I was sitting there and I'm like, what the hell is she talking about? And then for it to just turn
Well,
and
technically,
just the words Littlefinger come out of her mouth, I got goosebumps.
Yeah, me too.
I wanted to scream,
She-
but the baby was sleeping, so I couldn't do that.
technically she did confess to murder in the room together with Sansa in the previous episode.
But not of anyone that would have been
Yeah.
detrimental to Sansa's victory.
but that's the thing. But if there's proof of murder, she literally could have brought forth those faces that were in her bag and be like, "Here's proof."
I mean,
but
yeah.
in
So
that particular
it
case, she's
still
accused
could have
of
played out
murder.
in the sense of she was talking to Arya, so everything was well pieced out to where it makes sense.
It didn't for me.
Yeah, it
That's
didn't
why
for
I
me.
immediately questioned it, because I was like, basically Sansa's opening up with, you've potentially committed treason against House Stark.
Yeah.
So you've committed these crimes against this house, and it's dangerous for us to now allow you to continue to live. So how do you plead to these? And my immediate thought was, what has she done to endanger House Stark at any point?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally nothing. The only thing that she did do, technically, that we are aware of is that she technically low-key threatened Sansa.
Yeah.
But let's face it, if she wanted to kill her sister, she would have been dead ages ago.
And I wonder, was that even a threat? Because
don't
now
think it
she
was.
twisted the knife.
Because now, my whole thing now after seeing this is I think that Arya was very much aware of what was happening, and she made it seem like she was playing into Littlefinger's thing by, sneaking into the room and stealing his stuff and making him feel comfortable in the plot that he was trying to portray, but she made Sansa aware of it, and she was aware of it so that they could both essentially lead up to this point.
And take her down.
What makes me most sad of that scene is, with this season being cut short, I would have liked to have seen the revelation of when Brandon likely came and told them, because a lot of things they were saying came from him.
Yeah.
Him basically saying, he conspired this way with this person. He did this. I mean, some of it, Sansa witnessed over the season.
Yeah.
He saw her kill Lysa. So, but the whole Ned Stark conspiracy, pitting the two sisters against one another.
Yeah,
that was all coming from Brandon, and when he comes and quotes,
directly. But then at the same time, you have to understand too, they don't necessarily need to give us that detail, because Bran is the one-eyed raven, so he can see these things at any given time without having actually been there at all. And he can prove that over and over again. He quoted directly from a situation that he likely wasn't even there to quote, but. And that's why, Littlefinger's face of confusion of, how the hell did you know that I said those exact words?
Yeah.
What do you mean? That's kind of proof as Bran's not lying.
Yeah.
Bran's not lying. Sansa
Right.
is aware, and Arya, has been through a lot of stuff that, a lot of it's Littlefinger's fault, and Sansa's seen it also, so...
And I think, from a story perspective, it worked better this way. It would have been really cool to see their reaction to the revelation as Brendan and
build that camaraderie between these three siblings, because
They've
we've kind of
always
seen
been
a
kinda
one-dimensional Brandon this season, where he's kind of just been off and kind of just...
He's the one-eyed raven, okay? I literally... So we got a text from Ashley, who is one of our coworkers, and she was like, Bran's kind of creepy, and I was like, I feel like that's in the job description of the one-eyed raven, things that you have to check off: being silent, saying that you know everything, using birds to see things all the time, traveling back and forth in time,
being confined to something like a chair or a tree.
These are job requirements.
If you want to be the one-eyed raven, these are the things that you have to experience. So I think being creepy and being strange are definitely very high up on that list. So we have it. He is all-knowing. He's young, but he's super all-knowing.
He's like a god.
It's crazy.
So
pretty
then,
impressive.
what about the huge revelation that's been...
Wait, can we just talk really quick before we end this about just how satisfying it was to just... I've always thought Littlefinger was a very, pathetic character that has to, leech onto people. And seeing him there in the middle of all these people, on his knees, basically in tears, crying for forgiveness.
Yeah.
And Arya is just... She just walks up to him, no questions asked. There's literally no hesitance.
Yep.
She whips that blade out, slices its throat, sheaths it, and walks right back to her spot next to her family. And I was like, I have goosebumps just thinking about it.
It was such a good execution.
It was fantastic, because she regrets nothing that what she did. She regrets none of it at all.
Nope.
She just sat there and was like, this is my job. I'm going to do it. And you're done. And she was like, moving on. Who's the next person that we're going to murder? Because I don't mind spilling the blood.
Can we talk about how
Well, let's talk about the whole, pass the sentence, should the one that passed the sentence should be the executioner, because it kind of got brought up later on. Because she's like, you did a really good job passing the sentence. You did really good. And then also the whole mentioning of the blade being brought up again with, you claim this was Tyrion's when it's really been yours all along.
Yeah.
And kind of tying that into it, and then ultimately that blade's being his demise.
Death.
Yeah, I thought that was great. And that's also something that you called, that he was going to get killed with that blade. And
I wanted it.
Yeah.
I wanted it. That's what I had said in the beginning when he claimed that Littlefinger was going to be the one to die. I wanted it to be Arya, and I wanted it to be with that blade.
So you got everything that you wanted.
That's all I wanted. I wanted that so much because I feel like everything that Arya has had to suffer through is primarily due to him. And so I think that she deserved that moment more than anyone else.
I agree.
And the fact that she's gotten to that point, like, there are a lot of things that have happened throughout the show that I feel like Arya deserved. And, like, when she was standing on the cliff at the beginning of the season where she was right outside of Winterfell, I was horrified she wasn't going to make it. I was like, wow, Winterfell's going to burn down right in front of her. No one's going to know what's going on. And I was like, just make it through the gates. That's all I wanted her to do. I was like, just make it through the gates.
And then those 2 guards at the beginning of the season who tried chasing her away. I was like, don't you fucking dare.
So this moment, it was everything that I wanted. It was everything that I wanted.
I think it was Sansa. Sansa also got some justification.
Yeah.
Let's face it, his effect on Arya wasn't as big as it was on Sansa. Everything that she went through...
Sansa's was more direct.
Was directed
Sansa's was more direct.
Married off to the craziness that is Ramsay. Ending up in Cersei's clutches, ultimately being in the house with her.
It was definitely satisfying for the both of them because, her sister got what she wanted, and realistically, Arya wants to do everything that she is trying to do because of her family. She wants to kill these people because they killed her father, they killed her brothers, now her sister's gone through all this stuff, she's gone through all this stuff, Jon's dealing with other nonsense, and I feel like Arya is basically now like, I'm going to take on the role of the protector because I can. And I don't have the same kind of honor restrictions that Jon does because fuck honor.
Yeah.
Where's honor going to get me? Nowhere. So I'm going to go ahead and stealth through and stab people and let them die, and I'm not going to regret it.
So, at the end, with the 2 of them standing overlooking, the fields of Winterfell, talking about their father, while, what Arya does isn't what her father would ultimately do, she is doing it still with him some semblance of honor. She's not just going out there and butchering people that don't deserve
she's
it.
not a murderer. She's still sticking to that list.
That whole, respecting one another and how they had both got to that very moment in time, I think was huge for the 2 of them, and basically respecting, she's the Lady of Winterfell, and Arya is now what Arya is.
And speaking of Arya and Sansa, so, I didn't really like Sansa throughout most of the season. I thought she was kind of a doormat and stuff, but she does say, I'm a slow learner, but I still do learn.
Yeah.
And, Sansa's finally come around to me as a character. But talking about Arya once more, the actress's name, Maisie Williams, right?
Yes.
Can we talk about how well she portrays a level of confidence and just power?
Because that girl, let me tell you something about her. Outside of Arya's character, that girl exudes confidence.
Yeah.
I remember I read an article, I think it was last summer at some point, where she took a picture of herself in some bathing suit, and some people started making some kind of ridiculous comments about her body image or something stupid like that, and she was basically like, if you don't fucking like it, don't look at it, basically. She is that person. And it's just her.
Yeah.
It's just her. She is Arya.
She stepped into herself.
It's awesome.
All right, so then let's talk about the elephant in the episode, which is, we get to see, our good old Sam once more, and we get to see him, united with Brandon after so long.
I was not expecting
for the biggest reveal, the one that has pretty much been chipping away at itself for the last,
and we didn't know when it was going to happen. I wasn't expecting it to happen right then. I was like, this was probably going to come up next season at some point, and literally within minutes of Bran and Sam sitting next to each other, it was like we need to tell Jon about himself, and he's like, what about himself?
Yeah.
And then it's he's a bastard of Dorne, and he's like, no, he's not, because I was actually... And props to Sam for actually paying attention while he was bitching about stairs.
Right.
Well, let's look at it this way. So, this whole scene for me is iconic, because for me it was goosebump worthy. It was kind of like I held my breath because it was something I've been waiting to fully be revealed.
Yeah.
And, when he's like, she gave birth to a child that was, Rhaegar's, and then, so he's not, Ned's son, and he's a bastard of Dorne, and then he's like, well, no.
Because they had an annulment, and he's actually a legitimate child of...
And then he's like, are you sure? And then we flash over to
the see it. So that is the ultimate confirmation.
The biggest thing that was said in that scene was, the entire rebellion of Robert was built on a lie.
Yep. Everything that has happened in Game of Thrones was built upon a lie. A lie upon... And you know what? That actually goes back to what John was saying, right? About how he's like, if we all just start telling lies, where does the truth come from? Where does the truth go?
Yeah.
And literally everything that has happened on Game of Thrones has been over lies.
Yeah.
Robert's rebellion, the death of Jon Arryn, the assassination or attempted assassination of Bran, and
The death of Ned Stark.
The death of Ned Stark. It's everything...
Attempted, death of Tyrion.
Yeah. Everything that has been happening throughout this series has been built on lies. And finally, our few genuine, honest characters have made it through.
That's the most important thing to me, and part of the reason why I said at the start of this that we got so much good in this episode. So we got, them all meeting together, and whether Cersei lied or not, they're ultimately at a standstill right now to go fight the White Walkers that are ultimately, marching upon the lands.
Mm-hmm.
We got that. So now they're not focused on fighting each other, and they're going to go take care of this more pressing matter. And then we got, Arya's ability to finally check one name off of her list because she killed Littlefinger the way that she said that she would.
Yep.
And now they're back together, her, Bran, and Sansa protecting their home again. And you have Jon finally having gotten, the dragon's glass that he needed so they can start doing this battle the right way. And you've got finally the situation where we've all known for a few episodes now, some of us for longer because we've had this, hunch that Jon is a Targaryen, and we got that confirmation, and Sam knows about it, Bran knows about it, everybody's going to know about it.
Yep, it's going to be huge.
So, and it's the truth, finally the truth
comes out.
Yeah,
it'll unite the
right
North
people.
in a way bigger because their union between, Lyanna and Rhaegar was legitimate. And not only that, it was the uniting of the two houses, essentially.
Yeah.
So the Starks technically have a rightful place in the,
the Seven Kingdoms. And, it goes to show, and I wish that the show actually, built more upon, Rhaegar as a character more, because in the books they describe that Rhaegar...
Well, they do. They talk about him, back in season...
they talk about him.
About how he would sing, and he didn't want to fight. He wasn't like...
He was a peaceful person at heart. But it goes to show the level of forethought that Rhaegar as a character had about everything, right? He was bringing the North and the South, the ice and fire, together as one. And so, of course, Jon is the Song of Ice and Fire. He is that story.
And it's Rhaegar's song.
Yeah. And it's Rhaegar's song.
Let's also go to the name that Jon truly has.
Aegon.
Aegon Targaryen.
And wasn't Aegon the Mad King?
He was the one that rode and united the Seven
Kingdoms. You're right. That's who it is. Titus! I got a plug in my lap.
So
Titus!
It's pretty much like a fulfilling name because what he's doing is essentially doing what the original did.
He is. Now, that brings us to the next situation, which... So, by technicality, now that we know that Aegon is...
Hold on, just to add some humor to this.
Okay.
So we have a union of a brother and sister, or aunt and nephew.
Well, that's why
and
I'm
now we
say.
have a separation of brother and sister.
Okay, is that where this is going?
Separation of brother and sister.
Jaime and Cersei.
Oh, yeah, so they're finally not a thing, thank God, because Jaime came to his senses. Ballsy,
and finally,
because
holding his oath.
Cersei basically threatened him and was like, nobody walks away from me, because Jaime is another one who, while he's done some pretty crappy things, he's kept his word.
Yeah.
Regardless of who his word was meant to and whether or not we liked it, he's been a relatively honorable person.
As well as it can be, yeah.
Yeah, and in this moment, he was like, there's a bigger danger coming at us than what you're trying to have me fight, and I'm not going to go and take over lands that ultimately are going to belong to the dead.
Yeah.
There's a bigger war to fight.
Well, for him, it was more about his oath. He's like, I swore that these people that
I would go and help them.
Jaime is ironically an honorable person.
Yeah,
given
that's
the
what I'm
fact
saying.
that he's known as the Kingslayer, he broke his oath as a Kingsguard.
Yeah.
Yet again, and went back to being part of his house.
Yeah.
So this is a guy that, through and through this entire story, has been known as an oath breaker.
But that's why I say he's a relatively honest guy because he sticks to his own morals. He's not a bad guy, even though he's broken oaths.
Yeah.
He's still a good person, and we've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
He's very loyal to Cersei because, despite the fact that it's gross, he loves her.
Yeah.
So, and he does it. He does all of it for her primarily, and he did it for his children until they all died, and he started to realize that Cersei's fucking crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
I think he realized that this is a decision that she made that was ultimately the wrong one.
Yeah.
So he's like, you just promised these people you'd help them, and you're essentially hoping that they can somehow defeat this threat and that it doesn't come our way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or that they don't defeat it and it comes our way anyway. So he's like, no matter what,
We can't do this alone.
Yeah, we can't leave them do this alone.
Regardless.
Yeah, if they win, their numbers are dwindled, but
So they're still gonna win.
Yeah. So I don't know about the two of you, but like at that scene where he's like, then have him do it. I thought she nodded for him to.
She did.
She did.
She nodded for him to. She nodded for him to do it.
to
but
draw
I
the
think-
to pretty much draw the sword, but she didn't
but
give
she
the
never
order.
gave the word for him to kill him.
Oh.
So,
right.
and that's why I was like ballsy for Jamie to turn around and say, then do it.
Yeah.
And he was scared that she was going to.
Yeah.
And I think that says a lot for his character too, because he was like, I'm
I'm
scared for my life because I see it in you that you finally hit this breaking point that you would kill me, the father of all of your children, the one who's been by your side this entire time, who you know that I've done everything I've done for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually going to think of killing me.
Yeah.
And that's why he turned around and he was like,
believe
he didn't say, I don't believe you, as in, I don't believe you're going to do it.
Yeah.
He believed you as in, I can't fucking believe that you would consider that.
Yeah.
That's what that was.
That is.
well, for me, I don't think it was so much as how far she's broken. I think for him, it was like she's capable of it, but
Yeah.
will she actually do it is a different thing. So it was the fear of he knows what she's capable of, but he also hopes that there's still part of her that would let him walk away in that moment.
But that's why he ended up saying those words, as in I don't believe you, because he trusted her to not say anything and to let him go, and instead she gave the approval of draw your sword and show him that I won't think twice about doing this.
Yeah.
And he said those words, and I think a part of him thought, I might die here, but I'm going to die walking away from this situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was crazy. So, I think that pretty much covers every scene but the last one.
Which is, okay, so the separation of the brother and the sister, and the union ultimately, so now that we know Aegon Targaryen is actually Jon Snow, and we've all seen the episodes and how they've been playing at this, like, kind of romance thing going on between Jon and Daenerys, who are now, factually, cousins. Niece and nephew? Niece and nephew, right, because Daenerys is Rhaegar's sister.
She would be
Niece and nephew. Because she's the daughter of the Mad King.
So is Rhaegar.
Rhaegar, they're brother and sister, which means
So
Jon is
she's
her
her-
nephew. Jon is her nephew.
And she is his aunt.
That's what we said.
Right.
You said niece and nephew.
Oh, you know what we meant.
That's
You know what we meant. Aunt
Anyway,
and nephew.
So they're related, but they've already done.
So this calls into
They did the
question:
thing.
how does she react when she finds out that he's the rightful heir to the Iron Throne?
I think she's
She might be relieved,
I think she will, because if that could mean one of two
but
things.
that also means this: if she truly can't bear children, her house isn't done
Yeah.
because he can bear children.
Yeah, and I think that's what she'll care about most. I don't think that, honestly, any of them care about the Iron Throne by this point. The Iron Throne seems to be completely pointless by this point, right? And I
don't
kind of
even
love
think-
that. Like,
I don't even think John would want it. I think he would be
He would
fully
be
open
fully
to letting her
to
be
letting
the
her.
queen
I
of
was
the
just going to
Seven.
say that because there's no point for him. He doesn't want that. He just cares about making sure that his family is protected and the people that he cares about are protected.
Didn't Ned
and,
at one point say the best leaders are the ones that don't want it?
Yes.
That's why when he stepped up to be the hand of the king, he declined it once before, and John Arryn took it.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'll gladly accept, being the Warden of the North.
yeah.
But at the same time, I think what ultimately would end up happening, when Jon and Daenerys both find this out is, I don't know how they're going to react to the fact that she's his aunt, because they're going to realize that real
Yeah,
quick.
but
John's gonna
Targaryens,
They inbreed all the time,
Yeah,
but
it
John's
wasn't
was raised as a Stark, so that's
yeah,
going to be
but-
really
but
weird for him.
I don't know, it might be like horrifying when he first finds it, like,
Yeah.
I just slept
Slept
with
with
my
my aunt.
family member.
I just slept with my aunt,
But
what?
this calls back, so I said this prior to the show, and I was like, this is full proof that he was a Targaryen prior to it being fully revealed. Was
Yeah, because
the episode where he picked up
the
boy-
lantern,
Yeah,
and
the
it was
lantern.
hot, and it didn't quite burn him. Like the heat of what he had picked up
It was
kind of was
jarring.
like a but when he dropped that,
Yeah.
that moment, and Chris is the one that pointed it out, he didn't have burn marks on his hand.
He didn't get any scars.
And he should have been.
Yeah.
He should have been burned. He picked up a
Syrian hot lantern.
Syrian hot lantern. Like,
Yeah.
it should have burned him.
Yeah.
But it didn't. So that was the initial kind of like, he's not.
Yeah, I thought it was just a
Everyone
creator.
thinks he is.
I thought it was a creator oversight. Way back when. You don't really think anything.
Creator oversights don't exist in Game of Thrones, Marshall.
I mean, yeah.
Stop it.
I'm just thinking about way back when. I was just like, I didn't think anything of it then.
No.
Now it became incredibly obvious.
But yeah, I mean, I wonder how they're going to react to the fact that they slept together. But realistically, I think if that wasn't a part of the situation, I feel like Jon is basically going to say, I don't want to be the king that sits in the throne. I have no problem with you being the queen that sits in the throne and me just being your support. Which he loves her anyway, which means if they were going to be united, he'd be king regardless.
Yeah.
But that's not a role for him.
I think that the Iron Throne is going to be abandoned after this is all said and done.
Probably.
I think that there's going to be an alliance between the Seven Kingdoms and maybe some kind of I don't want to say democracy because I don't know if they're there yet, but they hinted at it with Tyrion, right? He was like, there are other nations that do other things other than having monarchs.
Yeah.
There is Dorne, or not Dorne, but Essos, which does things differently. There is, all the different countries in Marine and
now
those
if
places.
we point out that Jon Snow is the true rightful heir to the Iron Throne, and we've seen, he was referring to the way the Night's Watch handles its succession.
Mm-hmm.
You have someone like Jon Snow that takes the throne, even whether it's with Daenerys or however he chooses to do it, he may very well bring about that change.
Yeah.
But it remains to be seen based on what happens in the next season.
Yeah.
And what had ended this one is pretty much things couldn't get any more grim than they currently are.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, so, I think that this is a good time to talk about the last scene.
So,
because we've pretty much covered everything else, right?
Yeah,
So,
with the end of the last episode, right? I sat there, and when they killed the dragon, Chris was sitting on the bed, and he was like, "Oh man, they're gonna try to kill Daenerys as she rides in on that dragon." And I was like, "Nope, he's gonna go for that dragon." And he sure as shit went for that dragon.
Yep.
And then I was like, he's gonna go for that dragon. He's gonna try to turn him. And the end of the episode,
that's exactly
they sat
what
there,
happened.
Pulled that dragon out of the ice water.
Somehow,
and
really
I was
can't
like,
swim.
I am praying that this doesn't work, but I was like, I know it's going to work. Mm-hmm. And of course, that eye opened, and it was bright blue, and that was the end of all my hope.
Yep.
And so, the end of this episode, I knew when we saw those White Walkers come up, I knew that dragon was going to come flying over their shoulders, and that's what they were waiting for.
And that's exactly what happened.
I mean, they needed something with the might capable of taking down the wall as it did.
And you thought it was going to be the Horde of
Winter.
Winter.
Is the right way to go about it, the way that they've set up the
bed
show.
To sleep in.
Well, our pug is sitting here,
he looks
falling.
like he's gonna fall asleep, but he refuses to get in a bed, so he's leaning back and forth and wobbling all over the place, and I'm afraid he's gonna fall on the floor.
Yep, it's the funniest, cutest thing in the world.
He looks like a weeble wobble.
It's so true. And you thought it was going to be the Horn of Winter that was going to bring the...
No, that's what I was hopeful for. But I was like, there's no way. They didn't build up to that story.
Yeah.
So the dragon was their
go-to.
Yeah.
And it breathes ice fire.
No, it breathes blue fire, which is the hottest fire of all. Well, it's the next
clear
hottest
flame
fire.
would be
What for them?
Clear flames was the hottest flame.
Well, Chris,
white flame is the hottest flame. Blue is the next hottest. So that technically it breathes the hottest flame that there is.
Able to be breathed
right now.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes out in blue flame. I don't understand how that works. So what, you get blue eyes and now you have blue fire? I don't get it.
Yeah, I figured it was going to be ice. I thought
not.
It was going to be Sindragosa from World of Warcraft, but he's not.
No, that's still fire.
Yeah. Oh man,
because fire can't be dead. So when he started breathing fire, I was like, realistically, if we decide we want to, and I say this with very loose terminology because there's no such thing as dragons. So if I go into the actual physiology of a dead dragon, there is none.
800-foot
but if dragons were real and they died, they should not be able to produce fire any longer if they were resurrected. And how they're able to produce fire after they're resurrected and it be blue is mind-blowing for me, because I'm just like, all of this is not right. But then realistically, there's no such thing as Walking Dead people with blue eyes, and there's none of this is real.
None of this is real.
So, I mean, everything works in Game of Thrones.
Yep.
Anything works in
Magic
Game of Thrones.
everywhere, and the
All
magic's
stuff.
just come full force.
Yeah.
And what a it honestly feels like a different series. It really does. It doesn't even feel like the same show. Like, I'm looking back to, like, things like the Red Wedding that happened, right? And as I just watched this, I'm like, this doesn't even feel like the same show anymore. Like, so much has changed in terms of just everything that's happening that it's taking its departure from a political drama now into, like, the grandest fantasy epic since Lord of the Rings. And it's something that now feels so good to see, because we've been waiting for it for 7 years, and it's finally here. So, final closing thoughts on this episode. What did you guys think? Anything left to say about it?
I just reiterate again that this episode gave us a ton of good things scattered throughout that I was like, wow, this is all amazing. And then it wrapped it up with literally the worst thing possible, because that dragon took his blue fire that technically shouldn't exist but does exist and totally wrecked that wall. And I'm a little bit scared because my favorite guy is on that wall.
Yeah, is Tormund dead? We don't know what happened.
No, you saw him get to the edge as the thing, so he's still up on the part.
He was on the part that's still standing.
Oh,
they
he's
didn't
still
destroy
standing.
the entire
Okay.
thing. It was just a portion of it. But, like, I love him.
He's great.
I'm sorry, but my ship officially is Brienne and him, so, I mean...
He has to
and
survive.
he's crazy.
Yeah,
so.
he has to survive.
But yeah, so, I mean, that dragon totally wrecked that wall, and I sat there, like, biting down, because I was like, oh man, that dragon's gonna come flying over there, and then it showed up, and I was like, fuck.
I don't think I breathed. To be perfectly honest, for that like entire final scene, I don't think I breathed.
Bad.
Chris, final thoughts?
No, I mean, I'm just gonna wait out until
2018.
until the next season. I'm content with everything that's happened, and I will enjoy the wait.
He's not human, by the way, because he's content to wait for this nonsense. That's not...
Because the reveal of Jon Snow being Aegon Targaryen was all that I was
There's a
ever
lot of
hoping
things
for.
that satisfied me. And
So I don't...
like...
Yeah.
All I know is we've got some White Walker battles ahead, likely some betrayals ahead, and the ultimate who ends up on the Iron Throne, if there is even an Iron Throne to
by
end
the
up
end
on.
of this, yeah. And winter has officially come to the south.
Yep.
It is here.
Jamie saw it. As he rides north.
Yup. It's great. You
Oh,
know,
man.
the funny thing is, my final closing thoughts is, Chris thought that we could do an entire season review in 15 minutes. And that didn't happen even remotely. It's been an hour. I might do some editing, condense some of this stuff down, but we also had a lot of good points. Let us know what you guys think in any of the comments. What did you guys think of this season? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you think that this finale lived up to all the hype? I personally was not a fan of this season as much as the others. However, this season finale, at least for me, solidified it. But anyway, I think that's it. Thank you for having me over for this, guys.
I think we did pretty well.